Hello, I'm Rick Becker, host of the Irish Baseball Podcast, joined today by Tony Bucher and Paul Cunnie of the United Irish Cultural Center in San Francisco. First of all, we are going to start with Tony. Tony, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Paul, a member of the Irish American Baseball Society already, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Tony, one of the things that we're trying to do here on the Irish Baseball Podcast with the 250th anniversary of the United States is to focus a lot more on the Irish immigrant and Irish American impact on the U.S. in the past 250 years. One of the areas that gets sorely underappreciated is the Irish American and Irish immigrant impact on the West, because we focus so much on cities like Boston and Baltimore and New York City, obviously, Philadelphia. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there is a big Irish presence in the San Francisco Bay Area, in California in general. So if you could talk a little bit about how your organization preserves that history.
Sure. I think of San Francisco, and I'll talk about it all day, and I'm sure Paul will also, because we love our home. Um, and My great grandparents came here in 1880, met and married in San Francisco at Old St. Mary's Church in downtown San Francisco, and that's where I was baptized. My parents were married there, so we have this. Unlike the image of California, we actually have very people form very deep roots around here. We're very kind of idiosyncratic place with a lot of personalities, a lot of characters. But I think that when in talking to the national audience about San Francisco and the Irish American community and the Irish American experience here, I sort of position us as something like the number five center in terms of size. So you've got Boston, New York, Philly, perhaps Chicago, and then Cleveland, Southwest Ohio, other spots. And then I think you'll have to look at San Francisco in terms just of numbers. So in 1880, when my great grandparents, T.J. Garrity and Kate Maloney, arrived here as young people, San Francisco had very rapidly developed as an industrial capital of population of about 300, I believe about 300,000, far and away the largest city west of the Mississippi at that point. So everything important that was happening in the West kind of had its focus in San Francisco. Doesn't mean San Francisco wasn't completely nuts at that time, but for a variety of reasons. But Of those numbers, about 30%, my understanding is about 30% were Irish born or Irish ancestry. So there were the numbers were there, and the Irish didn't have the because we emigrated. There were emigres into Mexican California, and there weren't the obstacles to the Irish that there were back east. There wasn't the tribalism, and so and also the types of people who emigrated. I think Paul and I would agree were the more industrious types of immigrants. And I have actual examples of the people, the way they were thinking. They wanted the people who had capital and had skills and maybe had family connections, really wanted to get out to California. And so you had a different kind of mentality out here.
So, who are some names that you like to highlight? What are some individuals that maybe people on a nationwide basis wouldn't have heard of yet, but that you focus on in your museum? Or do you sort of focus more on groups of people?
Well, it's a city of character. It's like I know this sounds strange to the national audience, but it's actually a city that's a lot like New York in many ways. It's a port city. It's got a kind of hard-edged port city. I know people don't think about California that way. Just just to understand that the images you have of San Francisco, Northern California, started in the 1960s. We were here 80 years before the 1960s, right? And we always have to tell, right, Paul? We always have to tell people this. You just don't get it And so I would go from the broader picture. When I give a talk on Irish San Francisco, um, I put together lists. I have slides that put together lists of the chiefs of police, the fire chiefs, the bishops, the archbishops, the county sheriffs. And it's not that there were some Irish among those numbers. It's that, Paul, am I right? It's like in up to the mid-century, 80, 90% of all fire chiefs were Irish. Um, Chiefs of the San Francisco Police Department. San Francisco Police Department, Paul can speak better to this than I, but it's a very kind of, I have relatives in the police department also, Peter B. Maloney being one of them, who were very, it was a very strong sense of civic responsibility. Maybe some tribalism, but again, it's not the East Coast, it's the West. So the vibe is different. But so I focus on these personalities that had a really important role in forming the city. The first chief of police, the first fire chief, the second archbishop were Irish Americans or are Irish born. So then you had characters like Tom McGraw, who was an illiterate hack driver from Brooklyn, I believe, son of Irish immigrants, who was the what did they call him? The Napoleon of impresarios in San Francisco. So he founded. So San Francisco had was a show city. They had a lot of single men spending money, and they liked the good life. And the good life consisted of going out to the theater and seeing women scantily clad dancing and plays and productions. And this guy went bankrupt like 3 times in the process of producing all of these shows. The guy could not read or write. He had no musical talent, but he loved the theater. And so he is somebody that's under celebrated, but it points to a type of personality that we had here. That I think if you're from like New York or Philly, you can kind of understand this personality. But we had our own version of it out here. Um, I guess you have to really. I'm talking at you. You have to really look at the big names. Look at the silver barons. I'm gonna mess the names up right now, but the four silver barons were Irish born or Irish ancestry, McKay, O'Brien, Flood, and Fair, and through a combination of financial and engineering genius, um, produced the silver wealth, mining in Nevada, produced the silver wealth that created much of the economic foundation of this place.
The one thing that Tom didn't mention, he talks the early days of and the history of San Francisco with the police, the fire. Let's go back to the early days of the city when it was just coming up out of the ground during the gold rush, and all the politicians that started this city, they were all Irish. They're all either descendants of Irish immigrants or Irish immigrants themselves. So the Irish ran the city from city hall to the police chief to the fire chief to the sheriff. The Irish ran San Francisco.
So, Paul, when Tony talks about there being maybe a tougher mentality in San Francisco than people on a national or international level might realize, what part do the baseball teams play? First, of course, the Giants when they come in, and then a little bit later when the Athletics moved to the Bay Area. Did bringing baseball to the city provide something for the working class and the tougher areas and the Irish in particular? And how quickly did the Bay Area embrace those teams?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a little too young to speak of that, but my father, oddly enough, because there was at the time there was the closest major league team was St. Louis. And so my father was a huge San Francisco Seals fan, and that was our minor league team. That's what Lefty O'Dole played for, and then ended up managing. Had a huge successful career as a manager there. That's another story. So my father grew up being a Seals fan, and his favorite major league team, and he doesn't know why, was the New York Giants. So when they talked about expanding and bringing the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Giants to California, one going to LA and one coming here, my father's worst fear was that the Brooklyn Dodgers would come to San Francisco. And because, I mean, even though he lived in San Francisco, he'd listen to it on the radio, because obviously the TV wasn't that big of a thing. I mean, he listened to it on the radio. And he dreaded being a Dodger fan. So the biggest news to him was when the Giants came. My father was there for the ticker tape parade down Market Street. He was there when Mays came in the convertible, and that really did bring not only the Irish community, but the entire city was welcome a major league team, and it was something that this city needed, and it came at the right time. Shortly after World War II, and this city was looking for something like that. And, it really transformed this city around something spectacular.
So, Tony, I want to talk a little bit more now about the UICC as an entity. And if somebody were visiting San Francisco and wanted to visit your organization, what are some of the exhibits that they would see, some of the history that they would get to appreciate?
So we're in the process of planning a new museum. Actually, it doesn't have a museum facility right now. If they visited the Irish Center, what they would see is a very rich calendar of current cultural events. I'll highlight one of the my favorites, which was I think it's an annual event. Paulie, correct me if I'm wrong. The firefighters versus the police department boxing
Yeah.
match.
Yeah.
800 people, and it sells out at $150 for a ticket. It's fantastic. And downstairs, you could have the cultists, the dance society. You could have something from my organization talking about some literary or historical topic, monthly meetings. So there's a really rich range of activities, or weekly Saturday musical sessions at the bar. It's really remarkable the range of sort of community activities that are going on there. Comedians from Ireland, music from Ireland, and so forth. So it's a very active, a very tight, cohesive community.
So, one of the things that gets talked about a lot when talking about the Old West is, California at one point being a part of Mexico. And I've covered a lot of topics while talking about the 250th. For example, Billy the Kid in the Old West. And he was, very popular among the Hispanic community in New Mexico. And we can talk about the San Patricios in the Mexican American War. I'm wondering if the Irish found a more welcoming San Francisco because of this cultural connection, the Catholicism with a lot of the Hispanics who were already living in the area.
100%. I mean, if you look at the city, for example, the city of San Rafael. Now, I can actually, point you to a couple of examples. One of the original, it's good to get the whole story. So there's a family, the Sullivans, that emigrated, poverty in conditions of poverty to horrible conditions to Quebec. Got off the boat in Quebec. Their parents died. There's three teenagers, and John L. Sullivan being one of them. So made his way to Missouri, where he joined the Murphys on their first trek over. I mean, it almost sounds comical if it weren't true. A trek over into Mexico, right? 1843, over the first oxen wagon train over the Sierra and into California. And that was, he was able to make a life here. I remember there's a woman in my parish growing up, Jovita Fitzgerald, who was part California, part Irish American. So many of the earlier migrants here, Irish migrants, married into the California families. So yes, I mean, we was a completely different kind of reception from what we would have gotten back east.
And talking about back to those early founders of San Francisco, or those early movers to San Francisco, what about more recent history? Has the Irish American impact and the Irish immigrant impact stayed a big part of San Francisco?
There's a big influx, I would say, in the 80s. There was a lot of people, a lot of immigrants in the 80s that came to San Francisco. And there still are. I mean, I'll go to different events in the city and or go out to Treasure Island for the GAA events to go watch hurling or watch football. And I see all these younger, when I say younger, they're in their 20s. I'm getting older. Um, these younger kids that are from Ireland. Yes, you see it more, but I would say in the 80s there was quite a few immigrants that came from Ireland and settled. Good example is the president of the United Irish Cultural Center here in San Francisco, Liam
Yeah.
Reedy, migrated here in the 80s, possibly early 90s, but it was around that time. So yeah, over the years there have been, yes.
Yes, absolutely. There's a friend, someone I know named Angus McCarthy. I don't know if you know Angus, Paul. So this is a fellow
Yeah.
who, he was, he's in his early 20s, came here as basically a laborer, I think. I think he had to sleep rough in the park a few nights. Went to the what they called the Atomic Arms on the 19th and Taraval, the Shannon Arms, the Atomic
Yeah.
Arms, because
The
it's an
Shannon Arms.
the atomic war sometimes. Um, but yeah, well, now he's one of the best established contractors, building contractors in San Francisco. So a lot of hard work, and a lot of, I'd say, generosity to the Irish community, and a lot of solidarity in the Irish community, and also a lot of solidarity with other groups. So I think through the sort of for instance, the contracting community. I mean, they've formed, I think, really strong relationships with the Chinese community, the Hispanic community, for instance.
I think that's an important part of this as well, because as we talk to different centers and different museums throughout the country, I talked to a woman who worked at the Irish American Museum in Baltimore, for example, and she said one of the biggest areas of support that they get are from some of the other ethnic organizations. Like, people are interested in preserving all of the different ethnic histories, and you find that you might have the Chinese organizations and the Irish organizations sort of working together, and maybe there'll be a Cinco de Mayo celebration, and the Irish Center will show up to, and their people will show up to support. And then when there's, the St. Patrick's Day festival, these other groups will come together. And I always find that that's really great when cities have the different ethnic groups coming together. And I think I want to ask Paul about this quickly because we only have a little bit of time left. And Paul, I do want to address the elephant that left the room. I know you are a Giants fan, but can you talk about the impact of the Athletics leaving Oakland and what the area is feeling since that's happened?
Oh, it's horrible, and it's not just the A's. The Warriors left Oakland. The Raiders have left Oakland. I mean, so our sister city right across the bay, they have a soccer team now. Okay, but they've lost three major sports. The Warriors are now in San Francisco. They moved back to San Francisco. The A's are gone. The A's are playing up in Sacramento with the hopes. We'll see if it ever comes true. If they ever end up building that stadium in Vegas, we'll see. But it really has destroyed the Bay Area as far as baseball. I mean, there was a lot of friendly rivalry because the people in the East Bay, they're going to be diehard A's fans, and the people in San Francisco and on the peninsula were diehard Giants fans, and so you meet up at a bar and there's going to be that rivalry. It's a little different than the Giants Dodger rivalry. That's not always as friendly, but them leaving really put a huge hole in the Bay Area when it comes to sports. I mean, the Bay Area is big enough and has the population to support multiple teams. New York has two major league teams. New York has two NFL teams. The Bay Area is larger than New York. If you take the whole 9 Bay Area counties, we're larger, and we have one major league team. We have one football team. It's a travesty.
And I'm not one of those baseball fans that, talks bad about Rob Manfred all the time. But I think when he said, the fans in Oakland, well, they still have the Giants. And I think that was kind of a tone deaf statement because, like you said, it is a friendly rivalry. It's not like the Giants Dodgers rivalry where maybe there isn't the vitriol between the two fan bases, but you're never going to get somebody who was an A's fan and grew up an A's fan to want to put on an orange and an orange
No way.
Giants hat, right?
Let's flip the table. If the Giants left and someone were to say, "Oh, well, you still have the A's," I'm not going to automatically overnight become an A's fan. I mean, it's I'm not going to do it. I'm a National League guy, always been a National League guy, and we can talk. And that's another topic about the DH and why the National League is better or used to be better. But I'm a National League guy, so not only would I have to switch to a different team, I'd have to switch to the American. No, no, no.
And
Just
Tony,
no.
oh, yeah.
It's a simple answer. No.
Right. No.
And Tony, is there any history of baseball that is represented at the UICC? Are there, besides Lefty O'Doul, who I can talk about with Paul on another occasion, probably,
Yeah.
are there a lot of Irish baseball names? Does baseball play a big part in the history of the Irish in the city?
Well, that question's great because I was actually looking at my notes from previous talks I've done, and one of the things that is under represented nowadays in San Francisco is how much what a what how nuts San Francisco was for baseball. Baseball and boxing were religion. I mean, you right? And so
Yeah.
I found my pictures of my grandfather, Jack Garrity, and I'm not going to share a screen, but I'm going to show you these pictures. Oh, foo. Can't really show the picture. In any case, I've got great photos of my grandfather and his brother in a team in the North Mission District. They were nuts about baseball in the city, and there were a lot of sort of semi-pro and amateur leagues. And so my grandfather, among others, would play baseball in the sandlots with uniform. I was showing a picture of a uniform with the big shamrock on the side there. So it was a kind of an ethnic thing. And also, I want to mention that I remembered there's a writer named Danny Cassidy, who wrote a book called How the Irish Invented Slang, which is a terrific book. And Danny's contention is that the word jazz was invented in the baseball lots in the Mission District of San Francisco. And he had a clipping because it's a derivation of the Irish word chaz, I think, which means heat or kind of intensity. And there's an Irish American writer who wrote about the jazz at the baseball. It was an exciting game and that had a lot of jazz. And African American musicians didn't even necessarily like that term for the music, but it was applied to the music that was emerging at that time by somebody else. I don't know. But anyway, that was his contention. So baseball, San Francisco, the Irish, and jazz.
Tony and Paul, I want to say thank you so much for being guests on the Irish Baseball Podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.